learning one-step equations, 1 and 2-step equations. So to solve a one-step equation, isolate the variable by using opposite operators or opposite operations. So in math, when we solve for a variable x, it's not quite as hard as some people make it out to be. We just have to do the opposite of whatever we see. You guys know what opposites are. So if we see hot, we think of cold. If we see big, we think small, because those are our opposites. So if we see addition and subtraction, if we see addition, we use subtraction. If we see subtraction, we use addition. It's the opposite. If we see multiplication, what do you think we use? That's right, division. Good job, everyone. And if we see division, we use multiplication. Great. And we learned about 2 new opposite operations we can use, squares and square roots. So we're going to be seeing all 6 of these things as we go through this unit. So for 2-step equations, first we want to start with, these are solving for problems that take more than one step, basically. And we want to start simple and work our way to complicated, all right? Because it's easier to take care of the simple things first, basically. So the simple things would be subtraction and addition and subtraction, and remove the constant. We want to remove the constant away from the variable. Basically, next we multiply or divide the coefficient by the coefficient. We want to remove the coefficient next. Coefficient, how do you spell that? There we go. Thank God for spell check. All right, tip, if dividing by a fraction, multiply by the inverse. Or the, I'm just going to call it inverse. So if an example of this would be if you were dividing by, like, say 3/2, the inverse of that would just flip it upside down and multiply by 2/3. The reason why we do this will be shown a little later. All right, so algebra tiles. Algebra tiles we could use to figure out the value of x sometimes. Ugh. Excuse me. So all we have to really do with the algebra tiles is just look at what we have. So it says what equation is modeled by the algebra tiles? Well, how many x's do we have? We have 1, 2 of them. So it must start with 2x. Because there's 2 x's there. And then there's the equal sign, and then there's 6 minus 1s, so it must be this. 2x equals -6. Now, one way you can think about this is 2 times a number equals -6. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, so it must be -3, right? But how do we figure this out algebraically? Well, think about our opposite operations. So we would start with 2x, and we would divide by 2, because it's being multiplied by 2, so we do the opposite, divide by 2. But whatever we do to that side, we have to do to the other side as well. So -6 divided by 2, and then we solve and simplify. So this gets us x, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, 1 times x is x, equals -3, like we said earlier. How can we check our solution is right? Well, if our solution is -3, all we have to do is plug that back into our x value. So basically, plug this guy. Oh, how can I draw in here? I want to draw. Oh, Oh, okay, come on. Plug this guy back into our x from up here. And that's how we can see if we're right. So does 2 times negative 3 equal negative 6? Well, yes, it does. So we are perfectly fine on that. So let's look at these examples down here. As always, I'm going to go through this first page with you. So solve the following one-step equations. Show all your work and check your solutions. So if you want to give this a try, pause your video and try all 4 on your own and come back to me when you're done. All right, now that you've tried all 4, hopefully you didn't just not do it because you're robbing yourself of the experience of learning. We're going to think about our opposite operations, okay? So it says x divided by 1.5 equals 16. Well, remember, if we're dividing by 1.5, what should we do? You're right, the opposite. So we should multiply each side by 1.5. So we have x equals 16 times 1.5. You could either use the calculator, or you can multiply this normally with pen and paper, or whatever. And we can see there's also another trick. You could split this up. You could say 1 times 16 is 16, and half of 16 is 8. And then you can add the two together. So 1.5 times 16, we get x equals 24. To check, we would say, oh, let's plug it in our problem now. So 24 divided by 1.5, does this equal 16? Yes, it does. So we're fine. Let's look at the next one. T minus 4.25 equals negative 4. So we have to think about what we see. We see this negative 4.25. We're thinking subtraction right now, so we think opposite, addition. Magnifico, right? Easy. So we're like, okay, well, we have to add 4.25, and we get 4 plus 4.25, or negative 4, sorry, I forgot the negative. And, we just get 0.25. So our check is seeing if 0.25 minus 4.25 equals negative 4. Spoilers, it does. So we are correct. So 6 over 7 times e is a little bit trickier, but if you remember what I said earlier about flipping and using the inverse of a fraction, it won't be that bad. So we have 6 over 7 e, and then what you're going to do, put this in parentheses and multiply by the inverse of 6 over 7, so 7 over 6. The reason you do this is because the tops and bottoms of the number cancel out. So this 7 cancels out with this 7, and this 6 cancels out with this 6. Let me put it in the multiplication sign. All right. So that's why you would do this in this way. So then you would go to the other side and you would say, oh, 12 times 7 over 6, because it has to be the thing you just multiplied by to make sense. And then you can simplify from there. Then you could be like, okay, this side simplifies to e. The other side simplifies to 14. The easy way you can do this is to think 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14. So then what we can do is we can plug it in and see if it equals 12. So we could say 14 times 6 over 7 equals 12. And 14 divided by 7 is 2. 2 times 6 is 12, so we say 12 equals 12. So we know we're correct. Easy peasy. N plus 10. We just are going to think about opposites once again. So we have 3.5. Opposites are going to be subtract 10. Subtract 10, see how I did to both sides of the equation? And I get m equals 13.5. If you want to check that, you can on your own. If you checked it, you would have realized I was wrong. So it actually equals negative 6.5. Because I was seeing if you were paying attention. Alright, to solve the equation shown, 2.5 equals 50. Darren thinks you should subtract 2.5 from each side, while Eddie thinks you should divide both sides by 2.5. Who do you agree with? And what makes the value of n makes the equation true? So, should you subtract 2.5 or should you divide both sides by 2.5? Well, Eddie is correct. And the reason for this is because Eddie is thinking about the opposite operations. So you wouldn't add or subtract because there's no add or subtract symbol in here. Plus a coefficient is multiplying. So we would just subtract 2.5. Also, this is why fractions are easier, because you could do this easier with fraction. Anyway, we would divide 50 by 2.5. 50 divided by 2.5 is, what is that? 2.5. Using my handy dandy notebook, I can figure that out. 20. So n equals 20. I should have figured. So 2 times 20 is 40, and then 0.5 times 20 is 10. 40 plus 10 is 50. So we know this is correct. All right. So with two-step equations, you might have to do two different things to get the m by itself or variable by itself. So your homework for tonight is to finish 6 through 15 and be ready to talk about this when you come to class. On this page. Why does it keep doing that? That's annoying. All right. Good luck, and come to class prepared. Thank you. Goodbye.